shocking turn of event Italy was thrown into chaos as a ferocious storm wreaked havoc across the picturesque landscape of Sicily and Rome. The unrelated tempest, reminiscent of a scene of Dante's Inferno, left a trail of destruction in its wake, testing the resilience of these Italian people and their determination of republic their beloved cities. Sicily, now in the straddling Mediterranean coastal line and historic Curm, is almost hardest hit by violent tempest. The island, unusually a sure weather, were caught in the turbulent sea of fury, pouring the curse and related force. Torrential rain, accompanied by gale force wind, battered the region, caused widespread flooding, triggering landscape and uprooted centuries-old trees. Its depths disappeared under murky water. Rural Sicily was not spared entire. The contact of the tempest of olive groves and vineyards were ravaged. The customers of Sicily, rich agricultural heritage, which helpfully to their fields were submerged, their livelihoods momentarily wiped out the storm war. The damage of the agriculture sector is cornerstone of the Sicily economy is yet to be fully equipped, but ill estimated suggest a significant impact. The storm has also rekindled discussions about the climate change and the increasingly visible impact. Scientists point to rising temperature in the Mediterranean in contrast of more frequent and intense weather patterns. This storm in Sicily is not an isolated incident but horrible to changing climate in respect not geographical barriers. Admits the chaos have been hearing displays of resilience and solidarity. Communities have together to support avoided evacuation support to provide shelters to those displaced.
Guardate ragazzi! Guardate un po'! Guardate un po'!
A severe storm hit Sicily. Italy caused heavy rain, strong winds and widespread flooding in several cities including Palermo and Catania. The extreme weather events which struck without warning turned streets into rivers, disrupted transportation and left thousands of residents without electricity and with damaged property. Local authority issued several weather warnings on the island who received rainfall significantly above the seasonal average. Videos show a dramatic scene where, posted on social media, cars submerged into water, people waist deep water in the floodwaters, and emergency service trying to reach stranded cities. Meteorologists report that the storm deployed rapidly over the Mediterranean Sea under the influence of low pressure system combined into high sea surface temperature, and a phenomenon that is becoming increasingly common due to climate change.
Le macchine se ne sono andate, sono volate.
Offering the lifeline in these terrifying times, agriculture sector and the backbone of Sicily economy is not immune to the storm impact. Orange in the field and inundated, posing to threat to crews of livelihood. Farmers already facing challenges in recent years are now too late to continue with the aftermath of this natural disaster. As the storm intensifies, rescue operations are underway to ensure the safety of residents trapped in the rising water. Emergency service blocked by the local volunteers to navigate in treacherous conditions to reach those in need. Evacuations are being carried out systemically, proportions to most vulnerable members of the community. Italy's government, in collaboration with the regional authority, is mobilizing rescue to address the crisis. Prime Minister Giorgia has declared a state of emergency in Sicily, unlocking additional funds to rescue and in recovery efforts. The Italian Red Cross and other humanitarian organizations are also coordinated relief operations to provide essential supplies and support to affected communities. While the storm continues to batter Sicily, the resilience and solidarity in the people shine through. Neighbors are leading to helping hand and communities are coming together to face and change in poison to natural disaster.
Oh ragazzi, questo è l'ipercop,
The Sicilian city of Palermo is trying to recover after the violent storm that caused chaos throughout the region, bringing record rainfall, destructive winds and widespread flooding. In a matter of hours, almost a month of worst of rainfall caused wealth of overflow and the streets of flood. Footage from the city shows cars floating like toys, buses stuck in the middle of the roads, and 5 residents seek refuge in a rooftop. The water rose so quickly that we barely had time to escape, said Giovanni Russo, whose family was rescued to firefighters from their flooded apartment. At least 5 people were killed and dozens were injured. More than 200 residents were evacuated from their homes, and thousands were left without power due to damage in power lines caused by fallen trees and lightning strikes. The historic center of Palermo, known for the architecture and the live market, was ill emptied, businesses closed to tourists and day hotels. Hospitals are overwhelmed, treating cases to hypothermia, injuries and shock. Emergency shelters have been set up in school and community halls to accommodate families who have lost their homes. The major called in a worst storm in history, and their request urged assistance to the native level. In addition to Palermo rural area, the Sicily were also affected. Vineyard, olive farms and a citrus orange which are vital to the island economy were destroyed, raising concerns about the significant losses and agriculture. Transport link was paralyzed. Palermo airport suspended flights to several hours, and a ferry rail service was suspended due to flooding and landslides. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the collisions of warm Mediterranean waters with a cold front, increasingly common phenomenon linking to climate change. Italian Civil Protection Agency warning that Sicily is now one of the regions in Europe most vulnerable to extreme weather conditions. Italy Environmental Minister has promised to new plan to rebuild the south, including flood protection and reforestation measures to improvement the early warning system, but critical said this measure alone overdue. In Palermo, the sun broke through the grey sky, elimination the messy aftermath in the night of Sicilians will not soon forget. We use a hardship, said Maria Conte, the grandmother, whose home was flooded, but we will drive flood, support each other and move on. Sicily is beginning to recover, but questions remain. Will the storm the wake-up call is just another serious ignore of warnings? Culture representative warned that the addition of psychological storm urged me to adapt to climate change were needed to prevent Sicily identified the tourist economy. This is a symbol act of unity in the consulate across the Sicily. Royal Bail Cemetery as noon Tuesday, a moment of silence affixing a silent train to serious. Sicily almost stranger to hardship. From the earthquake to volcanic eruption they have endured a lot, but this storm, many say, was different, not just a natural disaster but climate warning. The wind and the water.
Chiudi.
Public transportation was severely disrupted, leaving passengers stranded. The coastal area faced to boost with a storm and strong wave crashing against the coastline, causing erosions to damage the sea definitions. Emergency services are working around the clock to help those in need. The Italian Red Cross has mobilized teams to support the most affected areas, offering shelters and distributing basic necessities. Refuse operations are ongoing, with the reports of people trapped in their homes due to rising water. Helicopters have been deployed to evacuate those to immediate danger. sector. The impact of the storm on agriculture is also a growing concern. Sicily knows the serious growth of vineyard forces potential devastation. Initial estimates suggest significant crop losses with a could have the long-term economic impact of the region farming communities. Italian Prime Minister Conte has experienced solidarity with the affected residents, pledging government aid to resources to support recovery efforts. He praised the resilience of the Sicilian people and terrorist forced rescues. Meteorologists predict the severe weather conditions will continue over the next 24 hours and advise residents to remain vigilant. As Sicily struggles with the aftermath and the disaster of focus to ensure the safety of the residents is beginning to arduous task to rebuilding. The full extent of the damage will become clear in the coming days, but for now Sicily is widespread the storm relentless onslaught. In just a few hours, some areas received more rainfall than they normally do into entire month. Schools and government officials and affected areas were closed to precautions and civil protection until the disrupted assist the damage and assist in cleanup. In Palermo, several unprecedented were flooded rapid cars and landslides were reported in towns located on hills. Experts warned that such intense and frequent storms could become a normal in the southern Italy. Climatologists are urging authorities and citizens to strengthen infrastructure and emergency preparedness on the Mediterranean region continue to face the worsened effect of global warming. As Sicily begins the cleanup, the storm severs and not yet another stark reminder on a growing instability of the nature and urgent need to action to ensure environmental sustainability. Italy is facing a major crisis after catastrophic floods swept through the parts of the country, with Sicily and Tuscany bearing the brunt of devastation. Torrential rain over the past week was causing rivers to overflow, triggering landslides, and left entire communities underwater. The flood, described as some of the worst in recent memory, have claimed lives, displaced thousands, and caused widespread damage to infrastructure and homes. In Sicily, the latest rainstorm had left widespread flooding across urban and rural areas alike. In the island capital Palermo, streets have turned into rivers, with the cars submerged and many residents forced to evacuate. Catania, another major city, has also been severely affected, with widespread damage reported in a historic center. The floods have overwhelmed the drainage system, leaving emergency services struggle to keep with the demand to rescue operations. Many people have been trapped in their homes and helicopters have been destroyed to relieve residents from isolated areas. A powerful storm hit Sicily, plunging part of the Italian island into chaos as torrential rain, strong winds and flash floods swept through the gray skies, including Palermo, Catania and Messina. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm dumped more than 120 mm of rain in just a few hours, nearly a month's worth, flooding streets, collapsing roads and prompted dozens of evacuations. Emergency services responded more than 300 calls using helicopters to board the rescue trapped residents. In Palermo, dramatic footage showed cars flooding like toys and shops in the historic center of flooding. Giulia Romano, a 42-year-old local resident, said, "It was terrible. The water rushed into our house in a matter of minutes. The barrier had time to move the upper floor. Schools were closing in affected regions, and hundreds of people were left without power due to power outage." Authority also reported temporarily closed to Catania airport. The rail runway were flooded, caused delays and cancellations. Meteorologists explained the extreme weather conditions as a mitigant to rare Mediterranean hurricane formed by high sea temperature and unstable air masses. In Venice, a city all too familiar, and the high water level flood definitions were put on the test. The iconic most barriers designed to protect the crisis from the rising test were activated sheltering the Venice from significant damage. However, other areas of the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in the Veneto region saw extensive flooding with the residents forced to higher ground. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in several regions, mobilizing rescue workers to deploy to army to assist in evacuation force. Civil protection authorities have urged people to affected areas to remain cautious to official warning as more rain forecast in the coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in the affected areas, expressing her solidarity with the victims and pledging government support to reconfuse the force. This is national emergency, and we are working closely to local authority to ensure the safety for all residents, she said. Climate experts that such extreme weather events could become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, particularly vulnerable to affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, poor mountain infrastructure, and urban expansion into flood-prone areas has exacerbated the impact of recent storms.
Esta es la estación de la Garena.
Storm winds with the cyclone rotation around the lowland between Basilicata and Campania when it gets up to 100 km/h in the lower Tyrrhenian Sea. Sicilian, Ionian and Adriatic straits as the result of strong winds surge along the open coast. The situation is less critical in the West Mons basins and the Upper Tyrrhenian Sea, but weather is raging in Lazio, but not only there. Strong storms surge throughout Italy and snow at the very low altitude. The sea is stormy off the coast of Ponza is the ferry connecting of the island Formia and the marker of the waves. The ship brought the Formia left on the hour late today. By evening it was still and the road can left Ponza at 3:13 p.m. It is expected to arrive Formia around 8:45 p.m. Rome, Italy was hit by unprecedented hailstorm, surprised and catching locals by tourists of God. The storm brought heavy rain, lightning and hailstorm the size of a golf ball, caused damage of cars, homes and businesses. Witnesses reported hearing long bands of the hailstorm stuck roofs and windows. Many took to social media share photos and video of severe storm, with some experienced disbelief as such weather could occur in the normally sunny sea.
Madre de Dios. Su, que desastre. Mira. Ahora mismo en Garachico.
As Sicily slowly begins to dry up, the real lesson of the storm is being recovered not only in losers but also in dialogue and the growing average in the Mediterranean Sea. One of the candle is calm sea is sunny skies is becoming of the epicenter of the climate disaster. Experts call this a turning point to the urge Southern European government is invest in the climate resilience. Coastal cities such as Palermo and Catania, densely populated, are reaching a culture heritage, particularly vulnerable to rising sea levels, increasing rainfall to heat waves. The Mediterranean Sea is warming 20% faster than the global average, said Dr. Giulia Romano, the climate researcher of University of Rome. This storm was not a flood. This is part of the trend where seeing more intense, more frequent, more destructive. International observers from UNESCO have experienced concerns about Sicily historical monuments, many of which were flooded or damaged during this storm. The Brockway territories of Noto and ancient Greek ruins are still nude, and new parts of the parts surrounding Mount Etna were affected. Sicily has always faced extreme weather conditions, say climatologist Lucia De Santis, but the scale of intensity of this phenomenon is unprecedented. The sea surface temperature is at 3 Celsius above average and they contributed to strongest storm. The Italian Red Cross has launched a campaign to collect food, clothing and foods. Donations are accepted online in location collection center. Despite the destruction have also been stories by heroism. In Palermo, a police officer warning through the flood waters a rescue an elderly couple trapped in the flooded car. We couldn't leave them there. The water was rising fast, he said. As cleanup beginning to Sicily starts to recover, officials warn the crisis far from over. Weather warning reminding police and another storm front could in southern Italy by the weekend. Sicily Civil Protection Chief Fabio Crusoe warning thought the increasingly unstable Mediterranean climate economy, warning from climatologists who said that the sea surface temperature now about 27 Celsius are contributed to the formation of more tropical cyclones now at the Mediterranean. Local media including Roberto Lagola of Palermo and Etnico Tragico of Catania have requested emergency funds of support from the national government. Cleanup efforts are ongoing with more than 1,400 civil protection volunteers and firefighters involved in the cleanup debris and drainage flooded areas. Environmental groups such as Legibird and Colson Italy in the speed up infrastructure urged especially in the southern cities prone on flooding. Experts from the University of the Palermo know that 16% of region drainage system and outdated or inundated from the today extreme weather conditions. As Sicily begin in a powerful recovery, the message is clear. Climate disasters are no longer a distant possibility. They are not happening now with the devastating consequences. Experts warn that such events are becoming more frequent due to climate change, especially in the southern Europe. Palermo Major Robert Lalacala called the government assistant say this is no longer a seasonal storm. This is a climate emergency. We need to urgent investment in infrastructure and prevention. No casualties have been confirmed, but dozens of people have been received medical attention and injured in the shock. The Italian government has promised to assess the damage and provide funds to clean up in the coming days. Sicily is beginning in lightly clean up the stormy stock, reminding of increasing unpredictability of nature in the face of global warming. In Messina, landslides blocked major highways, isolated several mountains villages. Farmers in Surrey reported several damaged crops with the olive groves and a vineyard underwater. One of the local farmers, Antonio Bellini, said, "We have lost half of our harvest. We haven't seen rain like this in 40 years." Temporary shelters were established in community center and church for families who were forced to leave their homes. Volunteers are working around the clock to distribute food, blankets of our necessities.
Un lago, cioè quello si è aperto completamente.
The Italian city of Palermo was left in shock after the severe storm swept through the Sicilian capital, bringing torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and flash floods that paralyzed the city. Within hours, trees turned into raging rivers, swept away across the trapped residents in their homes. Emergency services were inundated with the cold, rescued dozens of people from flooded cars in the basement. It was like a waterfall rushing throughout the streets, said a local shopkeeper, who described it now if the store was destroyed in minutes. Hospitals has reported an influx of patents suffering from the injury and hypothermia. Authority confirmed several casualties and thousands of people were left without power as the power lines collapsed under the weight of fallen trees. The city's historic districts, usually bustling with the tourists, were earlier empty as residents hid in their homes. The storm also disrupted vital infrastructure. Palermo Airport temporarily suspended flights and ferry service were halted due to wave crashed onto the coast. In rural area around the city, farmland was destroyed onto olive groves and vineyards were flooded, raising fears of significant losses to agriculture. Meteorology said the storm was intensified by the warm water of the Mediterranean Sea, which follow unstoppable air masses. Conditions likely to the body effects of the climate change. Italy's Civil Protection Agency warned that extreme weather conditions are becoming the new normal and they call it to mandate investment to flood protection and the early warning system. Local authority declared a state of emergency and the government promising to allocate funds to deal with the aftermath of the national disaster. Volunteers joined to brigade the police to clear blocked roads, but recovery expected to take weeks to even months. After the storm, Sicily emergency service remained overwhelmed. Over 315 emergency calls were recorded in 24 hours, and fire crews were sent to Cerrete, Ragusa, and Argento to clear fallen trees, restore power lines, and evacuate flooded buildings. Farmers in rural area report catastrophic losses. Vineyard, olive grapes, and retail, and citrus orange, where other vital civil economy were flooded. This storm destroyed 12-year work. St. Antonio Rizal, the farmer near Trapani, were in despair. The island's fragile infrastructure suffered serious damage in the southern parts of the island. Bridges in the rural roads collapsing, cutting off Smile Mountains town. In Enna, several landslides blocked all access roads, forcing helicopters to deliver supplies. Rescue teams, including the military, have been deployed to assist with the worst-hit areas. Civil defenders until have set up temporary shelters in schools and community centers of displaced families, many of whom have lost everything. Environmental experts warn that such intense storms are becoming more frequent due to climate change. A powerful storm hit Sicily. Italy caused severe weather conditions that resulted in widespread destruction across the island. The storm, characterized by heavy rain, gale force winds, led to widespread flooding, power outage, and extensive damage to infrastructure. Local authorities report that the crises of Catania and Palermo have been hit by hardest hit. In Catania, streets turned into rivers, and water level rose in 3 during herds. The historic city center, which usually turned to tourists, is now ill-equipped. Emergency service tried to cope with the field. Video shared on social media showed cars submerged and residents walking throughout the waist-deep water. The meteorological service has recorded widespread up to 100 km/h, which further agriculture to situation. Trees have been uprooted, roofs have been ripped off buildings, and debris is scattered to roadway, making the trail dangerous. The regional government has issued a red alert, urged residents to stay at home and avoid unnecessary travel. In Palermo, the storm led to similar extent chaos. In local airport was temporarily closed due to flooding of runway, leading to flight cancellation and delays.
Ma va? Oh, mi sta dicendo casa!
In dramatic turn of events, Sicily finds itself those in unprecedented storm its nature unleashed any fury upon the picturesque Italian island. We burst the exclusive coverage of meteorological spectacle, deletion the impact of communities, infrastructure, and the environment. As the storm approached Sicily, among the clouds gathering, hilding the tempest to unparalleled proportions. Coastal area forced to onslaught the fierce winds and torrential rains, leading to widespread flooding in challenging conditions to both residents to emergency service. service. Our on-the-ground reported paint a vivid picture to havoc wreaked by the storm. The city of Palermo was transformed into rivers and water levels served submerged cars and tested to resilience to fluidness. The historic architecture withstood the test time to the faces of relentless onslaught of the wind of rain. Throughout the island communities are grappling with the power outage and the storm force causes significant damage to electrical infrastructure. Emergency shelters have been opened to provide refuge to those displaced by the storm. Coastal town in rural village in Sicily have experienced some of the worst damage. The agriculture sector, which is crucial in the island economy, have been hit hard, with the fields and cars destroyed in the rising waters. Landslides have cut off aces of several mountain regions, complicating rescue efforts. The situation remains filled, with the emergency crew working around the clock to respond to new incidents and then arise. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern region of the country. Torrential downpour can cause tourists to smell burst their banks and inundate towns and villages. The latest episode of flooding have left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with the thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po and the Rio, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency service to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads and insulated communities. Residents found themselves stranded in their homes waiting for rescue teams to arrive. The heat of Italy, Rome and entire city forced in all shared challenges at the Colosseum, an enduring symbol of Rome history, stood the silent weather the raging storm as a rain and wind threatening to erode an instant forecast. Trees turned into rivers and historic positions become waterlogged that caused extensive damage of city infrastructure. Italian authorities remarked today effective response to time of crisis point of action. Emergency service working tirelessly to rescue those trapped in the rising floodwaters and restore essential service helicopters. However, over submerged areas, airlifting residents to safety, though firefighters braved elements to reach those in need.